Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Isaac Christopher Lubogo, and my purpose today is to try to contextualize but also demystify those of you who have been asking yourselves what we mean by the sui generis and why the sui generis has caught the fire in light of perhaps the biggest group now in light of Uganda. We have about three now, probably coming to four, filled up WhatsApp groups, but because at sui generis we pride ourselves in being the architects of the unthinkable, in terms of the cartographers of the impossible, in terms of the sovereign of sui generis. So if you've come seeking for comfort in as the familiar thought, you better leave, because that will not give it to you at sui generis. This is not basically a sanctuary in terms of the conventional, nor is it a refuge in terms of the predictable. But this is an invocation in terms of an intellectual war cry, a manifesto for those who refuse to be shackled by what? By the illusions of limitations, and that is something you must comprehend at sui generis. We call something called thinking outside the box and throwing the box away, and we could argue that in terms of what we call the fallacy of the box. And for centuries, humanity has actually been lured into obedience by metaphors of thinking outside the box. So a feeble notion, and the argument here is that a mere trick for the mind to grant the illusion of freedom in terms of while acknowledging the box as the reference point. But there are, there's what they call the unuttered truth, the box that never existed. So it was merely the shadow cast by fear upon the walls of the known. So we are not called to step outside. We are called to do what? To alienate it, to set fire in terms of its remains, but also to render the irretrievable in terms of the abyss of the irrelevancy. So one of the things we also argue at sui generis is to comprehend what we call the tyranny of pattern thought in terms of conventional wisdom. We argue that conventional wisdom is nothing but polished stagnation. It rewards compliance, for example, and not creation. It sustains itself by discouraging deviation and branding the radicals as reckless. So the disruptor as delusional, but known, this that has ever shattered history, and it has ever forged a new epoch. And it has actually been a byproduct of the mind's not only abandoned in terms of conventionalism, but waged war against itself. So what then shall we make of sui generis in terms of contextualizing it? We are, to be content with the mere intellectual embellishments in terms of embracing the abyss of absolute originality. Those are some of the questions we propound and ask ourselves. So the challenge in terms of sui generis, in terms of the mind, is we call upon you thinkers who are not more than thinkers, but you who see the unseen, in terms of you who construct ideas and defy the inertia of the known in terms of the universe. So let this be your decree in terms of banning the maps of yesterday. In terms of the road of the unprecedented cannot be charted with borrowed compasses. We tear apart the blueprints, for example, of what has been, and create from the void, not from the echoes of history. That is something we comprehend at sui generis. We also desanctify the idols of thoughts in terms of great minds are not to be worshipped, but to be surpassed. So if Newton, for example, saw further by standing on the shoulders of the giants, for example, then we must be the ones who eclipse the giants themselves in terms of reverency, becoming the silent assassins of inventions. And then we also transcend the language of mediocrity, and the words shape reality. So that's something we comprehend. So the reality is constrained by the limitations of language. We speak formulations yet unknown, and we also do dare to articulate thoughts that have no linguistic precedent in terms of the vocabulary of our minds, and in terms of thinking that is already compromised. So we also reconstruct reality, and we don't inherit it, and the fundamental nature of existence becomes negotiable in terms of physics, in terms of law, in terms of philosophy, in terms of governance, in terms of politics, in terms of philosophy, in terms of perception. And therefore nothing becomes immutable except the cowardice of those unwilling to challenge their own assumptions and assume that nothing. So we question everything. We rebuild the universe only at sui generis, in terms of what sui generis mind can do. And therefore the reckoning awaits. We believe in what Ralph Waldo Emerson said way back in 1894, that if a man can build a better house or make a better mousetrap than their neighbor, even if they build their house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to their door. We believe in what Edmund Banks said: the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. We believe in what Bernard Shaw said. Most men see things as they are, and that's why we dream of things that are not, and that's why not. We really believe in what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther said, that the world is waiting for people where we're not going to be judged by the color of our skins, but by the content of our character. So to those who misunderstand the message, we'll label it as madness, but let them be. So the road to genius has actually been paved by those stones of mockery. Yes? So we have instances where people have mocked us. We believe those are stones. But history is the death to the critics of those in terms of the remembrance only, in terms of axis of revolution. So the box is gone and there's no retreat. So the only forward is the void of infinite creation. So we believe in thinking outside the box and throwing